Oh man, this one's a doozy, Jesus Christ. What the fuck? Okay, so with that lunacy out of the way, as you can tell by the title, we're doing another fanfiction tropes, episode 3, since this seems to be somewhat popular. I didn't know until I posted my first two videos that there were people on YouTube who, of course there were, what am I talking about? But I didn't really consider it that there were people who already kind of talked about fan fiction writers and fan fiction writing, what to do, what not to do. I never really considered exploring that aspect of YouTube, but it's kind of interesting some of the thoughts people, again, with more pinpointed criticisms and critiques of styles and attitudes and storylines and implementations of characters and how to write, It's interesting to see how they handle critiquing what can be seen as tropes, good, bad, whatever, what have you. But, the point of these videos is more to just really discuss some of the... Like I keep saying, sometimes the stories can be just fine, and sometimes the stories are complete utter dog shit. But the tropes that kind of flow in between those two sides of your view of the story in general is what's important. It's kind of just discussing the tropes behind some of the fanfiction that I've read, and of which I've read many, and kind of just really exploring just for the fun of it, the shit that I've read, the shit that I've seen. I'm sure that some of the people watching this, as I've actually seen comments, have read plenty of stories where, sometimes the most unique idea can be generated from an author, even if they use a trope, like the one we're going to be talking about here in a minute. Or the most samey, safe, beaten to the ground kind of idea, concept. But even those, you can give a pass if they're written competently enough and they bring their own, flair to things. If it's the same shit I've seen 1,000 times, if some people like the story, who am I to complain? It's not their fault that I've seen the story a million times. If it's the same story I've read a million times and it is really badly done, oh yes! Yes, I shall complain about this garbage that I've just spent probably, let's be fair to my stupidity, 20, 30 minutes reading. Especially if I'm desperate for, the storyline and someone finally wrote it and they didn't write it very well. But anyway, as the title shows, this trope is the Star Wars fanfiction trope, Episode 3, Time Travel. Now, shut up, cat, if you hear my cat in the background. Now, time travel, when it comes to Star Wars, is tricky, and I don't like it. I especially hate the idea that maybe to cover his own incompetent, asinine, moronic inability to, write good stories, film good stories, keep franchises alive, J.J. Abrams is maybe toying with the idea of time travel. If he is, oh well, just another show that Disney doesn't know what the fuck they're doing or how to write a competent story. And if they aren't doing that, well then shut up, because obviously you put that rumor out there because you wanted to be quirky. Ugh, God, die in a fire. Anyway, time travel, regardless of who's doing it and why, can always be really dangerous in terms of just writing the story. I don't like necessarily time travel because it feels like it's a cop-out. It's an easy way to fundamentally change the story. But sometimes, if you have a good idea, you have a good idea. Now this one is not going to be as broad as my anti-Anakin one that came before, where I have to go through every single character that suddenly replaces Anakin to becoming evil for evil's sake. But I am going to talk about just some of the general stuff I've seen and why I think it works or why I think it doesn't work. You know, more of me just randomly ranting about things that I've read or seen with my own twist on them. I've mentioned this one before. I'll say it again since it's being repeated. I read a story once. This was a long time ago, um, where basically we're in Legacy of the Force-ish era, maybe just pre Yuuzhan Vong, and like I'll just say this: Mustafar is involved. There's a lot of the characters who are alive at that point: Jaina, Jason, Anakin Solo, Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie. And at some point, some of those characters end up going into the past. And it's for ridiculous ass reasons. I will say Palpatine has time travel abilities.
Your hate has made you powerful.
Uh, yes, because the Force is the reason why they can time travel. I mean, I guess technically, if you really want to take the line, there is no limits on the Force, or whatever way you want to phrase that terminology. You could say that, oh, the Force could potentially have time travel. You don't know. That's true. But it still feels like, okay, if Palpatine can time travel, why the fuck is he time traveling to, I don't know, 40-ish years in the future, and just fucking wanking himself off and seeing how things are going before going back? Is he actually changing anything? Because it doesn't seem like it, and I'll get to that in a minute. Because some of these characters go back in time, and they end up in the middle of the beginning of Episode 3, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Palpatine are on the Invisible Hand, and basically they're being brought before Grievous, and some of these characters who have gone into the past are now wrapped up in that whole affair, and Grievous is just like, who the fuck are you people? And here's why time travel can get really fucking annoying. Regardless of the rest of the content of this story, whether or not it was written well, whatever, these characters from the future treat Grievous like he's a fucking joke. And it's not because he's Grievous that pisses me off. It's because fanfic writers, when you take a character who knows either the series of events or who have gone through their own trials and tribulations, they oftentimes take them into the past and they try to undermine and marginalize the importance of the characters or the situations going on in the past. So for the characters from the future to come back and treat and talk to Grievous like he's a fucking idiot, and then they make some statement too about how the Clone Wars aren't actually all that important and that they don't cause a lot of damage. Excuse me, in terms of Legends continuity, the Yuuzhan Vong War may have been the most devastating war, but right after that is the Clone Wars. That's like saying, oh, World War I didn't matter because World War II was so bad. Tell that to the millions of people who died in that war. Are you fucking kidding? That really annoyed me. I got the feeling that the author maybe didn't like Grievous all that much, but regardless, I kind of started to tune the story out after that. I was just like, alright, I'll keep reading because it seems like it's got a flow, but, you know, and, you know, a lot of stupidity happens where Palpatine explains to some of the people who come back from the future, he's like, oh, well, you see, I travel into the past and into the future to gain more knowledge and to see how I can, you know, be eviler and be stronger and win and all this stupid bullshit. I traveled... There's some stupid line, I've traveled 2,000 years into the future and seen the rise of an anti-force, you know, kind of chemical drug or whatever that, like, cuts people off from the Force all over the universe or whatever. Or I've seen the rise of the Hapen Empire. It's like, the Hapen Empire? I mean, like, okay, I guess it could be possible, but I don't see the Hapes Consortium conquering the entire galaxy. I'm just saying. So that story left a lot to be desired, and I've given away probably a few too many details for my own liking, but good luck finding it anyways, because it's gonna take you a while, and if you know what story I'm talking about, do not post it in the comments section. I do not want anyone being flamed or attacked because I personally don't like their story content, Plenty of people probably did, and I'm not giving anyone the right to go there and harass people for it. Now, for the next stories, let's. It's a common problem. The next kind of part. So I'm going to generalize it a little bit with some of the aspects and whatnot that happen. It's always Anakin or Obi-Wan or Luke, Leia, and Han go back in time because the Force just magically goes, oh, you know, this is just a sad outcome. I'm going to take you and put you boop, right back in time at a critical moment so that you can change history to whatever you want. And like I said, some of those stories work out just fine. They're kind of interesting. They have different, like, you know, twists and turns people can take. But sometimes they just don't really work out either. Obi-Wan going back in time usually plucks him right after he dies in episode 4 to, say, middle of episode 2, or some of the crazier ones are like in episode 1, because then that would indicate that he can try and save Qui-Gon, and a lot of times the writers have to write up scenarios in which Obi-Wan, no matter what he does, can't save Qui-Gon, because having Qui-Gon in the equation fucks up the entire story, especially if you're Sidious. And then Anakin usually gets thrown back in time, either when he's dying in episode 6, or I've seen stranger ones where he's already dead, and the Force has like a kind of presence. It's like the whole living Force idea, that the Force isn't just a an energy field that flows through all things. It is Qui-Gon's interpretation of it has a will, it has a purpose, it is like an entity, a being, even a godlike figure. It goes to Anakin, I'm going to send you back in time, and you're going to do this shit all over again, you're going to do it right. And Anakin's just like, oh yeah, please, I'd love to save my wife and my children and not kill all my friends. So Anakin gets thrown back in time. And to varying degrees, they've been interesting. You know, Obi-Wan can't save Qui-Gon, but he knows that Anakin falls to the dark side, so he tries to make up for all of his misdeeds of taking Anakin seriously when he says that his mother's in danger, or taking Anakin, you know, or taking Anakin inside and saying, like, I know what you're doing with Padme. I don't agree with it, but I'm gonna help you. And it's always, with Obi-Wan specifically, it always becomes kind of a toss-up. Is Obi-Wan going to try and fix Anakin, or is Obi-Wan going to be kind of like understanding, where he's like, you're doing things I would never do as far as Legends is concerned, but maybe I need to improve myself as a person and as your master to understand that you are, in fact, different, to try and fix you, or not fix you, but more like fix the situation so that you know that you can come to me for help, especially when it comes to Sidious and, you know, all the deception that went into Sidious gaining Anakin's trust. When it comes to Anakin, it's always a matter of, God, I fucked up really badly. Now I need to go back. And Anakin's oftentimes are worse than Obi-Wan's. Because with Obi-Wan, the main actor in this entire scenario, the core character of the saga, which is Anakin, regardless of whatever you think, he still doesn't know about the future, because Obi-Wan doesn't want to sound crazy, or there's like some weird force constraint about him going back in time. You can't tell anyone what's going on. You can only try to influence them, which is contrived. It's like, if you're going back in time, just say what you got to say, especially when you have Anakin's trust, so that he'll be like, you know, that's a lot to take in, Obi-Wan, but I mean, if what you're telling me is true, if Obi-Wan went back in time, and it was like, say, like episode 3-ish, when him and Anakin were on really good terms up until that point, Obi-Wan saying to Anakin, look, this is going to sound fucking crazy, but I'm from the future, and I'm going to tell you what you're going to be doing, like, say, tomorrow or whatever, when he knows what's going to happen, and have Anakin do it, have Anakin go, jeez, I mean, that's kind of fucking crazy, but, I mean, like, imagine a scenario where you're writing a story where Obi-Wan and Anakin are talking, and Obi-Wan's like, I'm from the future, Anakin's like, bullshit. Obi-Wan goes, okay, We're gonna get called in like 5 minutes from Mace Windu to go to Coruscant because they're under attack by General Grievous, and then boom, it happens. Anakin has to go, oh shit, alright, I guess so. I mean, still, Obi-Wan kind of has a little bit too much information and power there, but at that point, Anakin has to believe him, and Obi-Wan go, I know you have a wife, I'm not going to say anything maybe about what's coming next, but I know you have a wife, I know you married in secret, I know you and the Chancellor are close, I know you killed a bunch of Tusken Raiders on Tatooine. That would make Anakin go, okay, either you're a really good spy or I have to fucking believe you. But regardless of that, Obi-Wan trying to influence, or even Luke, because sometimes they make Luke go back and, you know, Luke pretends not to be Anakin's son, and Anakin and him get along very well, and Leia's there sometimes, Han is even there too, and they all try to, like, influence Anakin to being a better person. Those can be more interesting because they just inject themselves. You inject original trilogy characters into the times of the prequels where they're just odd by, like, how things were different back then, how the galaxy seemed a little more diverse, a little more inclusive, at least if you're talking about, like, aliens and, you know, culture and whatnot, and how everything wasn't so sterile and, what's the word I used last time? Conformed. Even if the war is, you know, as massive and devastating as it is. But still, it's always interesting to see how they approach things, because sometimes Obi-Wan, he says something or does something for Anakin, Anakin's just like, oh, well, you know, thanks, Obi-Wan, I'm glad that you kind of helped me out in whatever sticky situation I'm in. Or Obi-Wan goes, you know, Anakin, if you're hiding anything from me, you know that you can talk to me about it, and I'm not going to turn you in to the Jedi, I'm only going to help you, you can trust me, I don't care what you've done, you're still my friend, my brother, whatever terminology they want to use. And it's always endearing to see Obi-Wan kind of go back and, at least if you're a good writer, have his moment of going, I'm not the best person in the galaxy, I've screwed up here and there, how about I not judge Anakin as much for some of the missteps he's made, and maybe try and help, you know, fix the situation. Whereas Anakin going back, as much as I like Anakin, you know, when he goes back, he becomes an all-knowing, fucking ridiculous, overpowered jackass. Where, since he knows now that Palpatine is a fucking loon, since he knows his wife is going to be pregnant, or is pregnant, or since he knows he's going to murder all the Jedi, suddenly he just starts doing shit that is completely out of character. And I'm not talking about, like, to us, the readers. I'm talking about people in the universe are going, what is wrong with, what are you doing? Where Anakin's just like, oh, you know, Masters, we really ought to investigate the Chancellor. And they're like, yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, why not? He's like, Obi-Wan, you know, I don't think you should go to Utapau alone. Take someone with you, or, you know, he goes to Bail Organa. Bail, we really ought to work on dethroning the Chancellor, because I think he's corrupt. And Bail's just like, yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, but I don't necessarily agree, or, you know, just, he becomes kind of an arrogant jackass, too, because whenever he talks to Palpatine, he's always just like, I'm not gonna do that. It's like, oh, do it, kill him.
Do it.
You know, then he's just like, nah, I'm gonna leave Count Dooku alive, it's cool. And even Count Dooku's just like, what? Really? And then, of course, some stupid shit has happened where he dies, or Count Dooku decides to hold his tongue despite the fact that Sidious just blatantly ordered his execution. Or it's like, oh, I'm appointing you to be my personal representative on the Jedi Council. And Anakin goes, I'm honored, but can't do it. Or even, nah, it's not for me, sorry. And Palpatine's just like, what do you mean? What do you mean this is not for... and, you know, he's flabbergasted, but it's like, subtlety, thy name is not Anakin Skywalker, because he becomes such... Not all the time. I can't recall a story I've read where he's done things clinically, you know, intelligently, whatever word you want to use, but I assume there has to be at least one out there. Because if I were writing the story, and I'm not a great writer or anything, I would have it to where Anakin goes back in time, and he knows that he has to play things smart with Sidious to get him at his weakest moment. Yeah, sure. Have him try to undermine him politically. Yeah, sure. Try to infer to the other Jedi, maybe we should actually pay more attention to Sidious, but still be on Sidious's good side, still talk to him, still listen to him, play up to his own ego. At critical moments, yeah, you can make the better option, the better choice where but you can do it smartly. You're writing the scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan fight Dooku on the what is it, the command deck, the tower command deck of the Invisible Hand. Instead of just having Obi-Wan get knocked the fuck out, have it to where Anakin makes it so Dooku can't knock Obi-Wan out, so that they both tag team Dooku, have Obi-Wan kill Dooku because he has to, not as, an act of murder, but just because it's an act of self-defense, as a Jedi should, or have it to where Obi-Wan is still conscious, so that when Anakin has Dooku on his knees, Obi-Wan's just like, sorry, Chancellor, we can't kill a prisoner, you know that, and Palpatine's just like, oh shit, you weren't supposed to necessarily be conscious or alive for this part, so then you have to reorient the scene to make it work so that Palpatine, has to shut the fuck up and rethink things. Don't put Anakin in there to just, go in big dick swinging and act like a big asshole to fucking Palpatine. It's insanity. I think I read once, was it time travel? I don't remember if it was time travel. It could have just been Anakin being like a good guy, but I think it was time travel. Palpatine ends up losing, obviously. Anakin saves the day. The Order 66 is undermined because I think Bail and Padme end up getting the Senate to institute, I think, Order 65 or 67, where the troops actually have to fall under senatorial command and basically cease all orders from the Chancellor. It's a real order, I just don't remember which one it was. And basically they supersede his because they claim he's a traitor. And they remove him from office. And Anakin goes to fucking, kill Sidious. And the sequel bait that we got was insane because it came out of left fucking field. Where, and this story, again, is going to be hard to find. Good luck finding it. It's ancient at this point. Basically, Asajj Ventress is on Coruscant, working for Sidious, who might have, taken her up as, his semi-replacement because Anakin wasn't coming to the dark side. And he's like, ooh, I've learned how to use the dark side to create Force babies, just like Darth Plagueis. Ventress, you must hold on to this Force baby! And he artificially impregnates Ventress with the Force so that the sequel can come out and there'll be an evil chosen one. It's just oh my god, really? That never happened. I don't know if the author gave up or if they started writing the sequel and it just died halfway through or whatever. But it was the most asinine fucking sequel bait shit I'd ever seen, especially since Sidious gets fucking wrecked by Anakin later on, because I think Anakin, Mace, and Obi-Wan go to fight him, and I don't care how good Sidious is. You're fighting against all three of them, you're fucking dead, alright? What are some other time travel scenarios? It kind of revolves, it always revolves around the prequels, because most people, rightly so, view the prequels as the point of tragedy where so much, I mean, when you go into the past, it doesn't matter. You can go all the way back to KOTOR times with, say, Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker fucking kills Darth Revan because he doesn't know about Revan, returning to the light. Next thing you know, the galaxy is taken over by Darth Malak, and then everything has just changed. So you can do that anytime, anywhere in the timeline. It doesn't really matter, but if you're talking about the saga, the prequels are prime time travel territory to send anyone back and try to change everything that comes after, sometimes episodes 2 through 6, or sometimes, 3 to 6, or 4 to 6. It doesn't matter. Sequels don't count. Oh god, I'm sure there's plenty of those too, but if you know about any, please don't tell me. Well, you can tell me about the stupid ones, but don't tell me about any ones. I don't want to hear about Rey going back into the time and seeing the Jedi at their height. And then what? Rey proceeds to teach the Jedi Order about how great she is and how stupid they are? Fuck you. God, I hate that character so much. fucking googly-eyed, fucking mouth-breathing. Anyway, my rage must subside. I think that time travel can work. It just depends on the character. I don't like Anakin time travel stories, like I said, because he becomes an arrogant jackass. He knows way too much. Obi-Wan time travel stories generally work better because he tries to be more subtle. He tries to help Anakin be a better person, be a better Jedi. Tries to better himself and understand that he made plenty of fuck-ups himself. Or Luke going back with Leia, Han, or just by himself is always fun because he can see his father at his prime. He can see his father when he was a mostly good person. We still have to discount the fact that Anakin just murdered a bunch of Tuskens at one point. And other such failures, such as crushing a Scott Cohen's neck on Nelvon, but that's neither here nor there. And then it's also good for the timeline, of events, because Luke doesn't exactly know when the change happened. He just knows that Sidious/Palpatine is the one who did it. So Luke just kind of has to sit there and go, I don't trust that Chancellor guy. And Anakin's just like, well, what do you know? We don't know who you are. Then Obi-Wan's just kind of like, oh, maybe we should listen to him. But time travel is just... It's squishy. The only time travel that I know from Legends canonicity was Darth Revan going into the future because he was tinkering around with the Dark Staff, and the Dark Staff is this semi-conscious kind of weapon that is so filled with the dark side that it drives most people insane. It has a will of its own. It deserves a whole YouTube video of its own, and I'm sure some jackass out there has already talked about, is this the Dark Staff in the background of the trailer of Rise of Skywalker? Shut the fuck up. Oh, shut the fuck up. But basically, Riven ended up going into the future, not willingly. I think he was, drained of the Force because of it, and he ended up, traveling into the future on, Ruusan, just as Lord Khan activated the thought bomb. So he went into the future just to be fucking annihilated, which is just glorious timing. And then there was a couple of stormtroopers who were somehow teleported back in time. This was one of, the early Star Wars comics. It might have even been a Marvel comic where, these stormtroopers come across these entities. I think they might have been those Force demon things. Really ridiculous looking motherfuckers, where they were thrown back in time and they ended up on some random world where they were killed by a bunch of I don't know, alien natives, or they died of starvation or whatever. And then people way in the future were like, man, we found some stormtrooper armor on this planet that they should have never been on, and it looks ancient. I'm sure there's other references or ideas or inferences towards time travel in canon, Legends canon, but I don't know about them, because time travel, even if the Force, is limitless and, nothing is beyond the power of the Force, it feels kind of squishy to take the Force and be like, well, if I can use the Force to go back in time, I might as well go back and fix everything, because then what's the point of anyone making a decision, making a choice of free will, if you want to take the perspective that the Force has a will, the Force has a mind of its own. If you're going to give everyone the ability to go back in time and fix all their mistakes or fix everyone else's mistakes, then you've just created a dictator by proxy, because he just goes back and goes, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, fix that, and then if it fucks up again, redo, redo. It lessens the character arcs, unless you want to go back and you want to mess with the character arcs, which is why Obi-Wan going back in time is always interesting. Or I've seen some Ahsoka Tano going back in time and fixing things, and I don't give a shit about Ahsoka Tano. I know she has plenty of fans, and I'm not attacking the fans. I just don't give a shit about her story, her character, her quote-unquote arc, of which it seems to have just randomly ended at the end of Rebels, so congratulations. I guess we have a Jedi somewhere? I don't know, question mark? Anyway, sometimes her going back in time can fix things. Oftentimes, I don't know what they're talking about because I don't remember Clone Wars because I try to purge it from my mind. So, oh, you remember, Master, when we did this thing randomly somewhere against Barons or pirates or slave traders or fucking Satine or whatever. I'm just like, alright, well, I'm tuning out because I clearly do not know what you're talking about anymore. And yeah, I mean, like I always say, sometimes you can make a trope work like this, but really, I would rather just time travel as a whole not become something that Star Wars fans come to accept. Some stories, some sci-fi universes where time travel is prevalent, they can work, but oftentimes they don't, in my opinion, because it kind of makes like the sacrifices made seem almost irrelevant or unnecessary or wasted, such as like Stargate SG-1. One of the last like episodes, if not the last one, has them going back in time after all of this shit that they had done. Was this season 10? It might have been season 8. Either way, they go back in time and they're like stuck there at the beginning of basically the entire Stargate universe in terms of like humanity's involved. And the episode just kind of ends with them just being stuck there, and you have to read a comic book and an actual like book to find out what happened and how they went back into the future. And it's just like, really? Come on, man, that's some horse shit. Time travel, and I think most people agree that time travel, if it's not done right, is just a bad idea. But anyway, I've spoken too long. This video is going to be pretty long as it is. Have you all read any good and or bad Star Wars fanfictions where someone traveled back in time? Did they travel even further back in time, or did they travel forward in time? I'm not going to talk about the forward traveling in time. I will save that for another video. I will title it correctly when I get there. But yes, I have read stories where people have gone into the future. Those are just as squicky as this one. But anyway, let me know what you all think. Do you think it could be done? Do you think it's a bad idea as a principle? Support me on Patreon and you may get access to some cool stuff. I'm just shilling myself. I'm doing what Disney taught me. And yeah, on to the next one, people. Peace.